Renata Brooks kept her hands busy when rooms grew tense. She had learned that long before she ever learned how to keep her voice steady. In the mornings at the youth center, she folded donated blankets into neat rectangles, lined up plastic cups by the sink, and tightened loose hinges on the old cabinets in the corner storage room. It was simple work, the kind of work people assumed meant someone had nowhere else to go. She did not correct them. The center sat in the back of an aging strip of buildings where the paint peeled in long strips and the air always carried a faint mix of floor cleaner and wet cardboard. Volunteers came and went. Donors arrived with promises that lasted until the first time a kid raised a voice, until the first time a staff member felt threatened instead of needed. Renata was different. She did not arrive carrying a speech. She arrived with tools, with spare shoelaces, with a pocket full of sewing needles and tape that actually held. Her presence was quiet enough that people forgot to be afraid of her. But the quiet was not emptiness. It was restraint. On the first day she came to the center, she had been turned away at the doorway. A volunteer, young enough to still think every problem had a simple fix, stood with a clipboard and a practiced smile. "We're not looking for contractors," the volunteer said. "We're just short-staffed. If you're here to volunteer, you need to sign in and—" Renata had lifted her eyes, not sharply, not pleading, just steady. Her voice had stayed even. "I'm here to help," she said. "You can tell me where it's breaking." The volunteer blinked, as if the phrase didn't compute. "We don't break. We just need people to stay consistent. The kids, well, they test boundaries." Renata nodded once, as if someone had finally said something that matched her understanding of the world. "I know," she replied. The volunteer waited for the follow-up, the dramatic proof, the offer that came with the word no. Instead, Renata simply stepped aside and reached for a door that stuck. Her fingers worked the hinge with a patience that looked almost gentle. The volunteer's mouth tightened. "Ma'am, you can't just—" Renata's hand stopped. She turned her head slightly, not angry, not defensive. "I'm not going to stay where I'm not allowed," she said. "But I'm allowed to tell you the truth. This door sticks because the track is worn and the screws are loose. It's not the kid's fault the building fails. It's maintenance." The volunteer stared at her like she was speaking a language the volunteer didn't recognize. "We have staff for maintenance," she said. Renata looked at the floor, at the way the tiles were lifting at the edges. She looked back at the volunteer. "That staff is either overloaded," she said, "or not here yet." The volunteer finally stepped closer and lowered her voice, as if the conversation had become secret. "If you're military, you need to understand something." Renata did not react to the phrase military as a label. She reacted to it as a guess someone was making. "What?" she asked. The volunteer's smile returned, but thinner. "We have rules. People use veterans like a badge. They expect special treatment. That doesn't help kids." Renata heard the subtext, a fear that she would become a problem, a fear that her past would be another weapon the kids could mimic. "I'm not asking for special treatment," she said. "I'm asking for consistent work and honest boundaries. Those help kids." The volunteer hesitated, glanced toward the main room where several teenagers lounged and watched everything like it was entertainment. Then she took the clipboard and wrote something down. "Fine," she said. "Sign in and someone will show you the storage area." Renata signed. Her name looked ordinary on paper. It would have looked unremarkable to anyone who didn't know how to read the small things. The signature that did not shake, the way her pen paused with precision as if she had measured the angle. The storage area was cramped. There were boxes of paperbacks, old sports jerseys that no one had ironed, buckets of paintbrushes. She knelt to sort supplies and listened. Young voices drifted from the main room. Someone had been yelling. Someone else was laughing. Renata didn't move toward the sound. She waited until it quieted. When it did, she heard footsteps approaching. A man in a worn polo shirt, Owen Callahan, stood in the doorway, hands on his hips, posture alert in the way some people got when they were trying to look in control. "You're Renata," he said. Renata stood. "Yes." Owen's eyes flicked to her hands, to the tape on her thumb, then to her face. "I'm told you can fix things," he said. "That's fine. We don't need speeches." Renata's lips moved toward a smile that never quite became one. "No speeches," she agreed. Owen nodded once, as if that settled the question in his mind. "Then start with the cabinet. The latch doesn't catch and the hinges rattle. The kids keep slamming it." Renata moved to the cabinet. She opened it. The shelves held supplies that looked like they had been rummaged through during every argument. The latch plate was slightly bent. The screws were stripped. "This cabinet is one bad slam away from failing completely," Renata said softly. Owen folded his arms. "Everything's one bad slam away around here." Renata tightened a screw, then checked the alignment again. "The problem isn't the slam," she said. "It's that nobody fixed what the slam broke." Owen's jaw tensed. He did not like being corrected. Yet he stood there anyway, watching her work. When she finished, the latch clicked cleanly. She gently closed the cabinet. It did not rattle. Owen exhaled through his nose, almost annoyed at his own relief. "All right," he said. "That's good." Renata wiped her hands on a rag and waited. Owen cleared his throat. "You ever—" He stopped himself as if the sentence might reveal too much. Then he forced the words out. "You ever work with kids before?" Renata looked past him at the main room. "I worked with people," she said. "Kids are people who haven't learned to pretend yet." Owen blinked. "That's an answer," he said. Renata did not push. Over the next days, she became a steady presence in the edges of the program. She corrected how a kid carried a toolbox, not by scolding, but by demonstrating. She taught how to strip wire insulation safely by showing a clear step before expecting anyone else to match it. When someone swore at a miscut piece of wood, Renata didn't mock the anger. She just asked calmly, "Do you want it done right or done fast?" When the kid snapped, she did not escalate. She lowered her voice. "I'm not punishing you," she said. "I'm protecting you. Those blades don't care what you feel." That restraint made the kids pay attention. It gave them a different kind of authority to test. Because the kids did test it. They tested it with jokes. They tested it with challenges. They tested it with silence, by pretending they didn't see her when she offered help. But the program had a particular kind of volunteer culture. A quick assumption that a veteran would want to be thanked, that a veteran would want to be special. Renata never accepted that script. One afternoon, Owen brought her into the main room with a group of youth. A staff member, Marla, stood near the whiteboard, explaining a policy about equipment use. "Nothing leaves this room without permission," Marla said. "You break something, you fix it. That's how we learn responsibility." A teenage boy scoffed. "Lady, you don't know what breaking costs." Marla's cheeks flushed. She opened her mouth. Renata stepped in with a measured calm that didn't interrupt like a takeover. She raised her hand slightly. "I do," she said. The boy stared at her, waiting for a heroic statement, waiting for her to prove toughness. Renata's eyes didn't flare. They stayed steady. "I know what it costs when you break something you can't replace," she said. "So when you feel like slamming it, pause. If you can't pause, tell the truth. I'm angry, and I need help so I don't ruin something that matters." The boy hesitated, uncertain whether truth counted as weakness. Marla let out a tense laugh. "Okay," she said. "We'll write that down." The group continued for another hour. Renata moved between stations, tightening screws, correcting cuts, offering a calm, "Try it again," that felt more like guidance than discipline. At the end of the day, Owen approached her quietly. "Look," he said, "I know you mean well, but the kids talk. They say you served." Renata paused mid-motion, holding a small screwdriver. "And?" she asked. Owen looked uncomfortable. "And they say, some of them think it means you'll back them up, like you're their shield." Renata held the screwdriver still. "I'm not anyone's shield," she said. Owen's brows rose. "Then what are you?" Renata's answer was simple. "A mirror," she said. "If you need to lie to feel safe, you'll keep hurting people. If you can't lie, you might learn to protect them." Owen stared at her for a moment, then looked away. Later, when the center emptied, Renata sat in a folding chair near the hallway bulletin board. She watched the last cars pull out. She listened for the quiet that came after the day's noise. Her mind wandered, not to nostalgia, not to anger. It wandered to details. The way a body remembers a drill, the way a mind still counts time even when no one commands it. She had been out of uniform for years. The world expected that meant the past should stay in the past. But the world was wrong about what the past did. The past did not stay buried. It stayed ready. Renata's phone rang late that evening. She answered because the vibration pattern was familiar. "Renata," a voice said, "it's Marla. We need you tomorrow." Renata closed her eyes briefly. "What happened?" she asked. Marla exhaled. "Donations dropped off today. We got some new tools plus a framed photo. Someone says it's important, but half the volunteers can't get their story straight." Renata opened her eyes. "A framed photo," she repeated. "Yeah, the kid, Eli, brought it. He said his uncle gave it to him. He's been staring at it all day. Owen says we should take it down because it's, sentimental stuff." Renata did not like the word sentimental used like a warning. "Tomorrow," she said. "Thank you," Marla replied. "And Renata, please don't—" "Don't what?" Renata asked. Marla hesitated. "Don't make it a thing." Renata's voice softened. "I don't do things that don't matter." When she hung up, she stood and checked the lock on the storage room. She ran her fingers over the edge of the door, feeling for looseness. Then she turned off lights one by one. In the quiet that followed, she could hear her own breathing. It was calm. It was under control. The next morning, the youth center had a different energy. People arrived earlier, carrying boxes with careful arms like the tools inside were fragile creatures. In the main room, a younger boy stood near the bulletin board with a frame held against his chest. He was not the biggest kid in the room, not the loudest, not the most rebellious. He looked like someone who watched before speaking. His name was Eli. He glanced at Renata as she entered, and for a moment his face shifted. Not fear, recognition. "Hey," Eli said. Marla hurried toward him. "Eli, put that photo down. We're not—" Eli hugged the frame tighter. "It's not for you to be weird about," he said. Marla's face tightened. "It's for the program. We don't display random stuff." "It's not random," Eli replied. His voice was small, but it held. Owen stepped closer. "What's in it?" he asked. Eli looked at Owen with a patient disbelief. "You know," Eli said. "You just don't want to know." Owen's jaw clenched. "You're a kid," he said, trying to make it authority. Eli's eyes stayed on him. "I'm a kid," he agreed, "and I can still read." Someone behind Owen muttered, "What's he talking about?" Renata moved forward slowly. She did not snatch the frame. She asked, "May I look?" Renata said. Eli nodded once and held it out. The framed photo showed a woman standing in front of an old aircraft. The image wasn't glossy or staged for a magazine. It looked like it came from a file folder, slightly faded, the edges soft with age. There were other elements in the frame: a patch, a small certificate, a caption typed on a narrow strip of paper. Renata did not react. Her expression did not change much. But inside, something tightened. The woman in the photograph was her. Not the Renata who folded blankets and fixed cabinet latches. The other Renata, the version of herself that had learned to move through wind and dust without letting fear steer her decisions. Renata kept her voice level. "This photo is mine," she said. Marla's mouth opened as if she had expected another veteran's story, another dramatic entrance. Instead, she got quiet certainty. Owen stared. "Yours?" he asked. Renata looked at the typed caption. Her eyes tracked the letters precisely. She could still remember where the original photo had been taken, how the air smelled, how her gloves felt against the controls. "Yes," she said. Eli stepped closer. "I knew," he said, "because my uncle told me about her. He said she wasn't flashy. He said she didn't talk big. He said she didn't want credit. He said she just—" Eli swallowed. He said she made sure people got home. The room went quiet, not because everyone understood, but because everyone felt the shift. Marla broke the silence first. "Wait," she said. "So you're a veteran?" Renata nodded. Marla's expression soured. "Okay," she said, as if the word could dismiss what she didn't want to admit. "But we're trying to focus on the kids. People can serve and still be complicated." Renata held the frame carefully, resting it against her palm. "I'm complicated," she agreed. "That's not the same as being untrustworthy." Marla's shoulders rose and fell. "The photo could be anyone's," she said. "People fake things." Owen turned sharply toward her. "Marla," he warned. Marla looked offended that she'd been challenged. "What? I'm just being realistic." Renata's voice remained calm. "If you want realism," she said, "ask a question the photo can answer." Marla hesitated. Eli watched her carefully. He looked like a child who had already decided he wouldn't let adults ruin something just because adults were uncomfortable. Owen cleared his throat. "Renata," he said, "how did Eli get this?" Renata looked at Eli. "Your uncle told you it was important," she said. Eli nodded. "He said it was for someone who needed it," he replied. Owen's eyes narrowed. "Needed it?" Eli held Renata's gaze. "People act like she's just here to babysit," he said, turning his head slightly. "But she's not. She's teaching." Marla scoffed. "Teaching what? Cleaning up? That's not a skill." Renata didn't react to the insult like it was a personal attack. She treated it like data. "Teaching is a skill," Renata said. "But you're right about one thing." Marla's eyebrows rose. "What's that?" Renata pointed at the patch in the frame with one careful finger. "This photo isn't here to impress you," she said. "It's here to verify something you keep refusing to look at." Marla's face changed. "Verify what?" Renata's eyes moved from Marla to Owen to the volunteers gathered near the wall. "You keep assuming a mentor becomes harmless when she's quiet," Renata said. "That assumption is where mistakes start." Owen's voice lowered. "Renata, if this is real, if it's actually your record, why didn't you tell us?" Renata took a slow breath. Her hands held the frame steady. "Because you'd treat it like a trophy," she said. Marla bristled. "We wouldn't." Renata looked at her. "You would have demanded special access," she said. "You would have asked for a story to use as leverage. You would have made my service into a way to win arguments about discipline." Marla opened her mouth, then closed it. Owen exhaled. "So what do you want?" he asked. Renata's answer came without drama. "I want you to stop treating truth like a threat," she said. "I want you to watch what the kids do when nobody is performing. I want you to see how Eli recognizes people." Eli's small chin lifted. "I didn't recognize her from a face," Eli said. "I recognized her from the story, the memorial, the little things adults miss." A volunteer named Craig, tall, loud, quick to fill the air, laughed once. "Kids always think they know something," he said. "Where's your uncle now? Where's proof? Show us something." Renata's attention moved to Craig without anger. Her stillness made the room feel like it was waiting. Craig's laughter died down. Renata turned the frame slightly so the typed caption faced outward. She read it under her breath, not for memorization, but for grounding. Then she looked at the volunteers. "If you want proof," she said, "you can ask for the record. But you don't get to demand it like you're ordering takeout. You ask like you respect the person the record belongs to." Marla's lips pressed together. Owen stepped forward slightly. "Renata," Owen said, careful now, "what do we call you from that time? What unit? What was your role?" The question sounded like an attempt to understand, but beneath it, Renata sensed the same need for sorting, to place her somewhere on a scale of credibility that made everyone else comfortable. Renata answered anyway. She did not do it with flourish. She did not do it with melodramatic reverence. She said it the way you'd state a fact you knew could be verified. "I was a flight crew specialist," she said. "I served in search operations during contingency deployments." Craig scoffed again, but weaker this time. "That's not specific." Renata's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in focus. "It is specific enough to be true," she said. Marla folded her arms. "Okay," she muttered. "Then why does the photo look like a stunt? Like she's posing?" Renata's voice remained even. "Because you're looking for drama," she said. "And service isn't drama. Service is procedures. Service is quiet competence under noise." The room held still. Eli stepped forward then, interrupting with a child's simple logic. "She didn't pose," Eli said. "My uncle said this was after a night jump. He said she was tired. He said she didn't even want the photo taken." Owen's face tightened. "Your uncle said all that?" Eli nodded. "He said it with the kind of voice adults use when they don't want to cry." Renata felt her throat tighten, and she swallowed it down. She kept her gaze steady, forcing her body back into the calm posture she used when things might escalate. "Eli," Renata said softly, "where is your uncle now?" Eli hesitated, then answered truthfully. "He can't come," he said. He got sick. But he said I should make sure people like you don't disappear while everyone argues." Marla's eyes flicked away. Craig looked uncertain. He had been bold with words, but he had been avoiding something he couldn't name. Maybe empathy, maybe the discomfort of being wrong. Owen stepped closer to Renata, voice lower. "Why do you think we argued?" he asked. "We didn't mean to be cruel." Renata considered him. She didn't blame him in the way some adults wanted to. Blame was a story too. "I think you were afraid," she said. "Afraid that your program would look foolish. Afraid that you'd made a mistake welcoming someone. Afraid that kids would read you as hypocrites." Owen's throat worked. "So what now?" Renata looked toward the bulletin board where the photo would have been pinned. "Now you do what you claim you do," she said. "You take responsibility for what happens in this room. You stop outsourcing courage to titles." Marla's voice rose slightly. "We do not outsource anything." Renata turned fully toward her. "You do," she said, still calm. "You outsource authority to paperwork. You outsource trust to loudness. You outsource integrity to medals you think should be displayed." Marla's cheeks flushed. Owen reached for the frame carefully as if it might break. "Renata," he said, "if your record is real, we should be honoring it properly. Where can we verify?" Renata's eyes drifted to Eli. Eli's face was serious but not frightened. He looked ready to help. "Look," Eli said, "my uncle said there was a memorial. It had her call sign on it. He said if adults asked the right question, the right people would answer." Craig scoffed once more, but his tone had changed. "Call sign," he repeated. "What, like a movie?" Renata's voice was quiet. "It's not a movie," she said. "It's a name people used when they needed you to be understood across distance." Owen's hands tightened around the frame. "Renata," he asked, "what was it?" Renata felt the room lean toward the answer. People wanted a word they could hold like a key. She did not make them wait for dramatic effect. She answered in a plain tone. "My call sign was Apache Woman," she said. The words landed differently than any story. They landed like a fact. For a second, the volunteers looked at one another with confused discomfort, as if they had expected the truth to sound more obvious, more theatrical. Then something happened, small, not melodramatic. Eli's eyes widened. He stepped back slightly and looked at Renata as if he had just watched a door unlock. "My uncle," Eli whispered. He was right." Marla's mouth opened. She tried to speak, but nothing came out at first. Owen swallowed. "Apache Woman," he repeated, tasting it as if it were suddenly heavy. Craig looked down at his shoes. His bravado had evaporated into uncertainty. Renata watched their reactions without satisfaction, without triumph. She only waited, because truth wasn't meant to entertain. It was meant to clarify. A staff member from the front desk, Tina, entered the room, holding her phone and moving like she was about to apologize for a delay. "There's someone here," Tina said. "They said they called the center and asked for Renata Brooks. They want to verify a memorial record." Owen blinked. "Who?" he asked. Tina hesitated. They didn't say at first. They just asked for a copy of the photo caption. And then the number called again. It's from a Veterans Coordinator office. Marla's face went pale. Renata stayed calm. "Bring them in," Owen said quickly. Tina moved toward the door. While they waited, the room's noise drained away. People stood too still. Someone stopped tapping a phone. Someone else stopped mid-step as if their body had been told to freeze. Renata held the frame against her chest like a normal object. She was careful not to look triumphant. She did not want their relief to become a performance. Eli stood near her and stared at the frame with a child's intensity. "I told you," Eli said under his breath. Marla finally found her voice. "You could have shown us," she said. Renata looked at her. "I did show you," Renata replied. "You just wanted a story that made you feel safe. This is a record. Records don't negotiate." Marla's eyes darted away. She looked embarrassed, then angry at herself for feeling embarrassed. Craig cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, too quickly. The words sounded rehearsed. Renata didn't accept or reject them. She only said, "Try again when you mean it with your choices." Craig nodded, swallowing. Tina returned with two people. One was an older woman with a serious face and a folder tucked under her arm. The other was a man wearing a polo with a patch at the sleeve. His posture was firm, his gaze direct. They introduced themselves. The older woman said she was a coordinator for a local veterans remembrance program. The man's voice was steady. "We were asked to verify a memorial entry," he said. The name given included a call sign and a caption from an archival photo. Owen stepped forward. "We have the frame here," he said, holding it out. The coordinator opened her folder and compared the typed caption to a document inside. She did not rush. She read with careful eyes. Then she looked up. Her expression did not become dramatic. It simply changed into something unmistakably official. "That is correct," she said. Marla exhaled too sharply. "Correct?" she echoed. The man with the patch pointed gently at the caption. "The call sign listed," he said, "Apache woman, matches the flight crew specialist entry under this memorial year. The patch shown in the photo matches the unit code. We also have a verification request referencing your youth center's volunteer contacts." Owen's brow furrowed. "Our volunteer contacts?" he repeated. The coordinator nodded. "Yes," she said. "There were concerns earlier this week, questions about whether the mentorship match was appropriate. The request came from the family associated with the memorial. They wanted to ensure she was being supported properly." Marla's face tightened. "So Renata cut in gently, not cutting with cruelty, but with clarity. "You were being tested," she said. The coordinator looked at Renata with a kind of respect that didn't need to be announced. "Yes," she agreed. The room went quiet again, deeper this time. Eli looked between the adults with a child's straightforward certainty. "I told you she wasn't just here to clean up," he said. Craig's shoulders sagged. He looked like someone who had been forced to stand in the same truth he had tried to joke past. Owen's voice came out rough. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" he asked. Renata's answer was quiet. "Because you would have tried to be impressive," she said. "You would have tried to fix your image instead of your behavior. That's why the truth had to arrive through restraint." The coordinator stepped closer and offered a document. She did not press it into Renata's hands like a trophy. She placed it at Owen's side first, then nodded for him to see. Owen read the first lines. He did not speak. His eyes moved slowly across the page, absorbing dates, unit identifiers, and a final note written in formal language. Then he looked up at Renata. "I'm sorry," he said, and this time it sounded real. Renata nodded once. Marla's voice came next, quieter than before. "I judged you," she admitted. Renata looked at her without anger. "Everyone judges when they don't know the whole file," she said. "The difference is whether you learn." Marla's eyes shimmered, but she didn't turn it into a performance of emotion. She simply nodded. The coordinator spoke again, addressing the whole room. "We will update the center's volunteer profile," she said. "We also need to recognize her role in mentorship. Quiet mentorship matters. It's part of the reason these memorial entries still live. Owen's head tilted. Quiet mentorship, he repeated. Renata kept her posture steady. I didn't do it for recognition, she said. The coordinator's voice remained professional but not cold. Recognition isn't the reason, she replied. It's the correction. It corrects the story people tried to tell about you. Eli touched the edge of the frame lightly, like he was checking that it was still real. Does she get to keep teaching? Eli asked, looking up. The adults turned their attention to him. Renata crouched slightly so her eyes were level with his. Yes, she said, but not at the price of pretending you don't know my truth, and not at the price of you pretending you don't deserve protection. Eli nodded slowly. After the coordinator left with their paperwork, the center seemed to reset around Renata. Not because everyone suddenly became nicer in a sentimental way. People didn't become saints overnight. Instead, they became careful. They became quieter in the way that came from knowing you had been wrong. They stopped treating Renata's restraint as permission to disrespect her. Renata returned to her routine. She fixed the latch on the cabinet again after someone else handled it incorrectly. She checked the tape on the toolkit handles. She ensured the workshop layout made sense for safety. That evening, Owen called the staff together. We need a new approach, Owen said. Not because we were embarrassed, because Eli saw something we refused to. Marla folded her arms less tightly. Craig stood with his hands open as if he needed to prove he wasn't holding pride. Renata listened. Owen continued. From now on, we don't let people use service like a prop. We don't let volunteers treat mentors like an emotional service animal. We respect procedures. Marla nodded, eyes still heavy. Renata added one final point. The kids will test you, she said. They'll test you to see if you can handle truth without panicking. The ones who can't will teach them fear. No one challenged her. Eli sat in the corner looking satisfied in a calm way that didn't need attention. Later, when Renata walked with Eli to the parking lot, the air smelled like damp concrete and distant cooking from someone's apartment. Eli tugged at his sleeve. Do you miss it? He asked, voice cautious. Renata looked at the sky, at the strip of evening cloud. I miss being useful, she said. Eli's brows knit. But you are useful, he said. Renata smiled then, just a slight curve. Yes, she agreed, so I'm not lost. Eli looked at her for a long moment. Then he asked the question adults still didn't know how to ask. Were you scared? Eli said. Renata considered how to answer without drama. I was disciplined, she said. Fear was there, but discipline decided what to do with it. Eli nodded as if he understood more than adults expected. Renata paused by her car. Her fingers hovered over the keys. Eli, she said, when adults don't believe you, you don't have to shout to be right. You just have to point to what's true and be steady long enough for them to catch up. Eli repeated the lesson like a vow. Point to what's true, he said. Renata nodded. He ran inside. The door clicked shut. Renata stood for a moment longer, quiet as the shadows around the building. In her mind, the past didn't glow. It sat where it belonged, real, heavy, not sentimental. It did not demand attention. It simply demanded accuracy. She drove home slowly, hands steady on the wheel. Somewhere in the city, she imagined the memorial with her call sign engraved, a line of text that had outlasted the doubts of people who thought quiet competence was a mask. The story had finally corrected itself. Not with fireworks, with verification, with a child's recognition, with adults who chose to listen when the truth arrived without performance. Renata didn't feel like a hero in that moment. She felt like herself, and that was the only redemption that mattered, being treated with dignity not because of what people guessed, but because the truth was finally allowed to speak plainly enough to silence the room.